Good morning. This is Richard Evans, filming my first screencast for revenue management professionals, and also delves into issues in condo hotel revenue management. So let me get started. I'm sometimes asked questions about the difference between managing revenues in the condo hotel and in the traditional hotel, and that is the subject matter of today's screencast. Yes, there are differences. The first difference is that the revenue manager has to deal with inventory fluctuation that occurs because owners will use their units. This can be anticipated as you become familiar with your property. You'll know the times of the year. Maybe it's vacation times. If you're, for example, in Argentina, July and August would be in South Florida a very, very busy time for owners wanting to use their units. So you have a sometimes dwindling supply of inventory that you have to deal with, and you have to know that in advance. On the rental management agreements, normally you see a restriction that will not allow more than 30% of all unit owners at one time using their units. Obviously, if that happened, it could possibly put the hotel program into a bit of an awkward situation with some of their providers of reservations. So it's either the revenue manager or the revenue manager dealing with the owner relations manager, dealing with the owners and ensuring that the hotel program has enough inventory to get highs and lows and so on and so forth, a good mix of revenues. Also very, very important in the condo hotel, again, somewhat of a revenue management issue, also, again, the owner relations manager issue, and that is to make sure that owners are adhering to the policy of making reservations to stay in their own units at least 30 to 45 days out. Christmas time in South Florida, which is, of course, where I am, so this is why I keep mentioning it. You may want to have 60 days out, but you must get in the habit of having those owners calling in advance. It's very difficult, number one, to tell a unit owner he can't use his own unit, and number two, very difficult to meet demands if all of a sudden a week before a reservation an owner comes in and insists upon using his unit. So yes, that can be an issue. There is a difference between 3, 4, and 5 diamond hotel owners. Typically, the 3 and 4 diamond unit owner in a condo hotel tends to care less about the wear and tear in their unit and more about the amount of their monthly distribution check. Now, that's something that you really need to focus on. As revenue managers, we know that if you correctly use your base business, and that's something I'll get into later, you can greatly increase the sum of dollars in each unit. Unit owners don't always understand that, and that's something, again, that I'll speak about in a later display here. But yes, the bottom line is that the unit owner is always on the phone and wanting to know, why is my distribution check less? How can I make my distribution check more? 5 diamond hotels can be a little different, and they may be a little bit more in tune with keeping that unit in tip-top shape. So just know that. Great care must be used in ensuring that fair and equal gross room revenues are spread amongst the different zones in the building. Zones meaning you have oceanfront rooms, that would be one zone. You may have a zone from the 1st to the 10th floor and the 10th to the 20th floor, city views, so on and so on and so forth. So the building is broken up, and I also will be talking about pooled revenue, which is not legal. So all revenues that an owner earns is actual revenue that goes into their particular room. I have found that the majority of algorithms that are out there that are supposed to distribute income fairly do not do the job. Usually they do half the job. Either they're distributing room nights or they're distributing ADR, but you have to have a combination of both in order to make sure that people in different zones are receiving the same amount of income. And that often requires manual oversight, even an Excel sheet, just to check it periodically, maybe every 3 or 4 days, make sure that each zone is getting their fair share of revenues. As I said, base rates, as we know as revenue managers, are very, very important in the mix to optimize revenues. Unit owners are not quite as sophisticated in this. They don't always understand this, so you will have an owner relations manager getting a call from a unit owner, and I will say frequently, asking, why is this low rate in my room? Why are you accepting this low rate in my room? And of course that needs to be explained. And in a way, you have to train your unit owners to really understand the philosophy between revenue management. There are some units that say, you know what, never put a reservation of less than $300 per night in my room. Now, the hotel program has to make a decision if somebody does that. What I suggest, this is off course here, but what I suggest, if somebody does that, you'll have to remove them from the program. The program survives on equal distribution and the ability of the revenue manager to maximize or optimize revenue by putting low and high rates with all the channel mix into all rooms to maximize those revenues. Complimentary rooms also create an interesting dilemma. Every unit is required to put a certain number of complimentary rooms into the mix during the year. For those of us that have been in the hotel business for a while and dealing with banqueting and meeting directors, we all know that in the traditional hotel, these sales team members fall in love with certain rooms because they know those rooms are the best views, maybe have or less wear and tear, are just exceptional for closing the deal. Here, we cannot use that philosophy anymore, simply because you can't keep putting people into the best room in your condo hotel, because that owner is not getting his fair share if that occurs. So you got to be careful to monitor that and make sure that that's not happening. And finally, in the last panel here, no pooled revenues. In the United States, it is different than it is up in Canada, and it is also different than I was just in Dubai. It's different there. Pooled revenues are illegal. But here, there is a match. You are actually putting guests into a room, and there is a split of revenues that is earned based on the rental management agreement with the owner of that unit. But that's what he or she earns. They earn specifically what goes into the group. That does play upon the philosophy of revenue management, and you have to be careful. And once again, you have to be very, very sure that your distributions between zones is almost equal. And at the end of the year, or during the course of the year, you need to monitor this constantly. I hope this was helpful. These are definitely some areas that the revenue managers that are getting into condo hotels have to consider. Everything is solvable. It's all a matter of metrics. It's all a matter of watching your pace, knowing what your inventories are going to be, anticipating. And as in the traditional hotels, history does repeat itself. And so once you learn it, it's not that big of a deviation. Hope this was useful. My name is Richard Evans again, and I'll be doing another blog or screencast next week. Thank you so much.